Now we will walk through Assignment 2, Reflection and Application for Week 4. This week we will focus on Gottlieb Chapter 4, which explains the instructional assessment implications for oral language and literacy development. Along with this chapter, you will read Chapter 2 from Fairbairn, which identifies key assessment strategies that can support all levels of language learners. You'll have time to reflect on the implications of these chapters as they link to your own assessment practices and your case study student. Here's a reminder around the guiding principles of this class, thinking through equity in assessment for ELLs. One question we can continue to ask ourselves is, how are we creating equitable assessment practices for ELLs? What are core beliefs and understandings that support this work? For example, the belief that every teacher is a teacher of content and language, and that ELL's instruction must be based on standards. And additionally, a key component is that ELLs learn language through the content according to their language proficiency levels. We'll continue to come back to these guiding principles throughout our course. Let's begin with Gottlieb Chapter 4, Assessment of Oral Language and Literacy Development. The Bridge to Linguistic Equity. This chapter highlights that at the heart of schooling is both oral language and literacy development. Gottlieb explains how each language domain, speaking, listening, reading, and writing, not only contributes to a student's overall language development, but also how these domains convey academic language in authentic ways. So how is a student's language acquisition process represented within their academic literacy development? In addition, this chapter will connect how language development interacts with effective instructional assessment. The graphic above depicts the organization of Chapter 4. Oral language and literacy are umbrellas for types of language assessment. Under those umbrellas are specific language domains. So, for example, under the umbrella of oral language, Gottlieb explains the nature of listening and speaking, and from there, the text considers instructional assessment practices for each of those domains. A question to keep in mind as you continue through this text is, how might you explain the importance and value of assessing each language domain and the language of each content area? This is also a connection to the assignment 1 for this week, where you viewed an oral language sample and how we can assess both language and content at the same time. The first part of the reflection for week 4 asks that you identify 3 quotes from Chapter 4 in Gottlieb that strike you as relevant to your work with ELLs. Then you'll explain those connections to the quotes using evidence from the text as well as implications for yourself as a practitioner. You'll also read Chapter 2 in the Fairbairn text, General Assessment Strategies for English Language Learners. Chapter 2 of the Fairbairn text identifies general assessment and instructional practices for ELLs. Also, the chart that came with this text is an overview of how the Fairbairn text is organized. For example, the general assessment strategies listed on the chart are now further explained in Chapter 2. Take a minute to open up the chart and look at the general strategies. For the purpose of our work, let's zoom in on the assessment strategies. Take note of what you do already. We want to name your strengths. Think about how these strategies could be used to engage English learners in content area instruction and standards. Now take time to read Chapter 2 and think about 2 general assessment strategies that would support your case study student. For the second part of the reflection, we've asked you to identify 2 assessment strategies and then explain how and why these would benefit your case study student. There is a reflection template linked in week 4. Please cut and paste this into your reflection journal for week 4. This is just a reminder to view the week 4 overview for specific information about all the assignments, including this one, application and reflection.